So I'm here to talk to you guys today about how to start and scale a real estate portfolio, but it's less about a strategy that you've never heard before. At this point, with YouTube and podcasts and everything else we have, I don't think that there's information that you haven't already heard of. It's going to be about becoming the kind of person that you need to be if you actually want to make that happen. And though I know many of you have heard me on the podcast before, I think it's probably likely that you don't know much about my own story, and that's where I'm going to start today. The book, Pillars of Wealth, How to Make, Save, and Invest Your Way to Financial Freedom is the hardest book I've ever had to write, but I'm also the most proud of it. And I think it will have more value than any other books that I've written for you guys. If you know someone, especially somebody young, who wants to figure out what does it take to be wealthy, this book is about how you become the person that can actually maintain and hold on to and acquire wealth. If I'm being honest with you guys, I got tired of people coming up to me and saying, "Hey David, I have no money, no job, no credit, no skills, no girlfriend, no car. How do I buy real estate?" And I was like, you shouldn't. You got way bigger problems to deal with before we get into owning real estate. Like, why do you have none of these things? And the answer was always something wrong with them. Their value system was flawed, and they were taught you're supposed to look for a way around the problem. And my advice to people is you need to go through the problem. You need to figure out why you can't keep a job. Why is it that being at work at 9 o'clock seems like an insurmountable problem for you? Or whatever excuses you have for not being successful. If you want to become wealthy in this world, you just learn how to bring value to the marketplace. Now, the marketplace for some of us is like the investment properties we're trying to buy. For other people, it's the customers or the clients that your business serves. And if you work in a W-2 job, it's your boss. But the more valuable that you become, the more money that you will make and the more wealth that you will build. And there's a lot of analogies in this book, but one of the big ones that I talk about is that if you wanted to be strong, you don't just put 500 pounds on the bench press and say, if I can lift that, now I'm strong. People think that's how wealth works. Okay, give me a $50 million asset and I want to be able to manage it because I want all the perks that come from that. But if I stuck 500 pounds on the bench press and I said, okay, do it, you wouldn't become really strong. You would just end up with a broken rib cage. And you'd probably be mad at me, okay? If you want to learn how to acquire wealth, you have to build yourself up into becoming the kind of person that can handle it. And I've basically taken the stance that investing is one out of 3 pillars that you need to understand if you want to become wealthy. Now, I don't need to sell you all on why that's an important pillar, okay? That's important for people that have never heard of real estate investing. Somebody who's out there in the FI movement, you guys familiar with that? These are people that play defense really well. They stitch their own clothes, they make their own soap, they can live off of 1 bag of oatmeal a day, and they're proud of it, okay? They tell you all about it. And they're very good at saving money, but they never become wealthy because they never learn how to make money. And I find that people that are really good at defense like that are the same people that don't like personal growth. They don't want to leave their comfort zone. They don't want to learn new things. They don't want to be exposed. They don't want to feel like they're not enough, so they just stay at what they're comfortable with, and then they just never grow. That's the first pillar. You have to be able to play defense. The second pillar is making money. That is actually a skill you need to have, and I'll let you guys know a little secret. When you pull back the curtain of the real estate influencer space and you peek at who's behind it, a lot of those people that are your favorite real estate investors are not making their money from investing in real estate. They are making their money from businesses that they run. Many of those businesses are teaching you how to do the thing that you're coming to learn. The second pillar is making money. Now, my personal stance on this is if you hate your life and you want to quit your job, getting cash flow from real estate is really not the best way to go about doing it. Because do I have any investors in here that will admit cash flow is notoriously unreliable, especially in residential real estate? You get a little bit of cash flow, you quit your job, you're going to be running right back to it because cash flow is incredibly unreliable. Now, for some reason, we've started pitching it like appreciation is a guess, but cash flow is guaranteed. And in my career, it's been almost the exact opposite. Appreciation was just about guaranteed if I waited long enough, but cash flow is it's like a cat. Cat comes in the room, sometimes it sits on your lap, sometimes it sits on someone else's lap, sometimes it pukes on the carpet. You cannot control a cat. You don't know what you're going to get with a cat. You just hope that the cat's in a good mood that day. That's how I feel with my portfolio most months. What thing's going to break today? What tenant's going to decide that they want to move out? What property management issue is going to pop up that the manager says I need to throw money at because they don't want to fix it? Cash flow is incredibly unstable. If you want to actually replace your income, you need to go either get a different job, work better at that job, or start a business. And for many of you that love real estate, that's why you're here, like me, you got the bug for it. Trying to replace your W-2 income with cash flow is incredibly difficult to do, but replacing it with a different income stream that you like is much more of a possibility. So the second pillar in this book is all about how to make money. There is actually a skill that goes into it. And like I mentioned earlier, the people that are good at business are the people that are in love with personal growth. They have fallen in love with the process of becoming great. They do not have a problem waking up every day, trying something, failing at it, and saying, I was not good enough. Now, a lot of you, that is why you will never succeed in that pillar. You stick with what you know, and you don't know why. You would just say something like, I don't know, I'm just scared, or that makes me scared. I don't feel confident. It's kind of like saying, I'll go to the gym when I feel strong. Anybody ever been in that loop where I need to go do something new to build confidence, but I don't want to do anything new because I don't have confidence? Many people can tell you what you have to go do. I'm here to tell you why you're not doing it. I think that's more valuable. It's probably because you're associating failure with rejection, and rejection is hurting you at a level that you're not willing to experience. A lot of that is related to father wounds, mother wounds, stuff that happened in your childhood. And when you go out there and try something new and you fail at it, it reminds you of what it was like to be 5 years old and have your parents pass right over you for your sibling, or to be left there saying, why is nobody proud of the thing I just did? And that hurts so bad that you don't go out there and push yourself into a new area. And if you want to become wealthy, that's the dragon that you're going to have to fight. There's no way around that. Because if you go to the gym and you say, I don't want to be not enough, you would never go. Every time I ever go to the gym, the idea of a workout is to go until you can't do it anymore, right? I want to work out until I cannot do that 12th rep. At the 11th rep, the weight collapses and my spotter grabs it and they put it up. That's a good workout, right? Well, isn't that working out until I'm not enough? Every day I have to go in from the gym and say, David was not strong enough. Every day at work, my goal should be, I took on everything I could until I could not do it anymore, and I failed because I was not enough. Which means the next day, I got to come back and I got to be better than I was the day before. Now, if you continue with this, with experience, with mentorship, with all the tools that you need, you will get stronger. But if you're not willing to face the fact that you sitting here in this seat, every single one of you are not good enough right now, you are not going to become more wealthy. Wealthy people have made peace with the fact that they're not good enough, and that's okay. Because they don't need to be good enough, they just need to be better tomorrow than they were today. And when you pursue that journey, you will find yourself making more money if you really get after it. And then the third pillar, you guys already know, this is investing in real estate. The FI community, they need to hear about this. The people that are really good at making money, the wealthy business people, they really need to hear about investing because many of them never get off that treadmill. But the key is when you put all three together. My journey is not as exciting as you guys would think. You heard I was in law enforcement, but before that I was a waiter. I graduated from high school and I was working at a sandwich shop called Togo's. And I just wanted to be the best sandwich maker that was in that shop. That's as simple as it was. So I tried to make sandwiches faster than everybody else. I would time myself and I would look at my competition. If there was anyone that could make a sandwich faster than me, piss me off. And I would practice, okay? I would literally take the roll of bread out of the thing and measure when am I supposed to be cutting it. And I would visualize where to put the knife and where to put my fingers so I didn't cut it. And I practiced, some people would saw 4 times. And I learned if I lifted my elbow up a little bit and I put downward pressure, 2 saws, and I could have the whole thing cut, right? And that seems silly that I put that much effort into making a sandwich, but when you do this 400 times a day, that adds up really quick. And what happens is the manager starts to see that your line is moving faster than everybody else's line. That makes them start to like you. When I would run to the refrigerator to grab more turkey or cheese or whatever I had to grab, on the way there, I would look at everybody else's station. They need ham, they need tomatoes, they need mayonnaise. And I would grab out of the thing ham, tomatoes, mayonnaise, turkeys, and cheese. And as I was walking back, I'd put it in their stations as I was going and then have the thing in mind. Well, what do you think that made my coworkers think about me? That guy's got my back. What kind of stuff do you think they said to my boss about me? We like that guy. Then the customers were like, wow, thank you so much, because I was fast. And I would just say, yeah, can you let my boss know on the way out that I did a good job instead of telling me? Now my boss is hearing it all the time. Wasn't very long before I became a shift manager. It's not a huge accomplishment, to be clear here. Being the best sandwich maker at Togo's is being the best looking kid at Fat Camp. It's not they're not all rock stars that are working in this place, right? But the idea is I created a work ethic that would serve me well. I eventually got a job in a restaurant, the nicest restaurant in town. It was my first time learning how tips work, and it blew me away. I made $30 on my first night bussing tables. I wasn't even a waiter yet. But at the time, minimum wage was like $6 an hour or something. I basically doubled the amount of hours that I got paid for working just by getting tips. And I went to the boss and I said, what do I have to do to get more of these? And she said, well, that's what you're going to get paid as a busboy, but when you become a waiter, you can make more money. What do I have to do to be a waiter? And she gave me a list of stuff. You're going to have to learn the menu. You're going to have to know how wines work. You have to become very proficient in the stuff we do. It was a tough restaurant to learn at. We had no food runners. We had one busboy for the entire restaurant, and we had very little support. So we didn't even have computers. Like, you had to write everything on a ticket. And then you had to add it up all yourself. And if you added something up wrong, you had to pay for it the next day. It was a very, very stressful environment. Every single entree would come with a salad or a soup, and you had to make it yourself, like literally tossing salads by hand for every single person. And it became very difficult to be a good waiter at that place. Well, I would just visualize the process of making a salad the same way I did like making a sandwich. I would learn the system of walking into the kitchen and grabbing a tray off of the side as I was walking instead of going and getting things ready and going back to get a tray. And I would stick it under the little shelf, and I would get all the salad plates out at the same time. Instead of doing one by one like everyone did, I would put out the 6 plates and make all the salads and scoop them all in and then, boom, be off on the way out. But I would grab stuff from my other tables when I was coming out of the kitchen instead of just going back and forth for every one of them. And everybody was kind of teasing me about how serious that I took that job. But what happened is I became the strongest server in the restaurant. And when you're the strongest server in the restaurant, you get the best tables. And when you get the best tables, and then you stay and close every single night, you get twice as many tables. And then I would pick up other shifts from other people. And I found that those 3 things, getting the better tables, working more shifts, and staying late to close every night, tripled how much money I made in a year from the other staff. And this is just working in a restaurant, okay? These principles that I'm talking about, like personal growth, even within a little microcosm of the world, led to a pretty decent amount of money for an 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid who was in school to make. Now, I would get up in the morning and I would go to college and I would come home and I would change and I would go to work, and that was my life. I wasn't like the other 20-year-old kids that were going to Cancun or Cabo every chance they got, always needing a vacation. That never made sense to me at 20 years old, what we needed a vacation from. I lived with my mom and my dad. My mom cooked the food that I ate. All I had to do was go to school and study and come home and go to work. And they would constantly they'd get stressed out in the kitchen, and they'd complain about how unfair it was or how stressed they were. And I remember just thinking, like, we make way more money than all the other people that we know. What are you complaining about? Now, the truth is there were grown people that raised kids off the income that came from the restaurant industry. I looked at it like I'm lucky that I'm 18 or 19 years old making the same money as grown-ups were. And because I knew how much I was working and how much I was giving up to work, I didn't want to waste my money on those dumb trips. I didn't want to waste my money on anything. So I made a rule that I had to save a minimum of $500 every single week. Now, this is 2000, 2001, 2002, right around that time, so that's probably like double what that would be in today's dollars. So that'd be like saving $1,000 a week. So every night I would come home and I would take all my tips and I would write down on a piece of paper how much money that I had made, and I would put it in my drawer. And at the end of the week, if I didn't have enough money, I had to pick up shifts from somebody else to hit that goal. Now, sometimes they didn't want to give up a shift, so I'd pay them $20 to work a shift for them. But if I paid you $20 to go make $95, to go make $120, I still came out on top. It was still a win. And what happened is, over the course of the time I was in college, I exceeded that goal every single time. I don't think there was a week that I didn't save a minimum of $500, and often it was more than that. That's not that much money when it's just one night. But when you compound this over 4 years of college, which, by the way, what the hell else was I going to be doing? You don't have kids, you don't have a wife, you don't have responsibilities, you just might as well be young and work your hardest. I was able to have my school completely paid for, my car completely paid for. I bought a new car, or new to me, and $100,000 saved up in the bank when I graduated school, right? Now, I didn't do anything that other people can't do. I didn't have a job other people didn't have. I was just intentional and focused about what my goal was, because I wanted to make the most of the opportunity I had. What I was doing was playing good defense. I wasn't spending money going out to eat. I wasn't spending money on anything but a gym membership, car insurance, and gas. Pretty much everything else I tried to just not spend money on. And then I worked a lot. And what I found is the more that I worked, the less time I had to spend money on stupid things. The less tempted I was to spend the money. And when you're working a lot, you don't want to watch that money go out the door. How many people here make a decent living, but you don't track your income? You probably have no idea how much money is just flowing right out the door when you're not tracking it. It's one of the principles that I talk about in Pillars is actually having a budget. That's what defense is about. It's not about depriving yourself. It is about intentionally spending money on what you decided you wanted to spend that money on. Okay, I give this example that imagine that we're all in a stream and we're sitting in this stream and you think you're just sitting there and your eyes are closed. So you don't realize that there's a current. You don't feel that there's a current when you're in the water, okay? And that's the equivalent of not paying attention to where your money's going, not having a budget. And then one day your eyes are open because you put a budget together and you're shocked now that you can see the landscape passing, how fast you're moving down this current. So you're aware of it, but you still don't really have a good emotionally or experiential experience. And then you put your foot down in the riverbed. That point when you say, I'm not going to spend the money anymore, is where you feel how much pressure is actually in that current. We are all sitting in a current and we're spending money on all kinds of stuff that we don't even think twice about. The Starbucks in the morning, the movie that you want to go watch, the dinner that you go to that you just throw some appetizers on there too, or you order another entree just to see what it's like. The last 10 years, there's been a lot of money flowing in, so why would you not do that? It's not until you decide, I don't want to spend money, that you see how powerful that current is. And that's when you get the ability to actually decide you're not going to spend money on something. You want to know what the biggest indicator that the people in Spartan League, my mastermind, have found when it comes to budgeting money? Target was taking all of it. This comes up more than anything. How much money gets spent on every trip to Target when they didn't intend to spend that money? They intended to buy some socks and they left with a grocery cart full of stuff. There's no value to that. And when you think about how many hours you had to work to make that money that you threw into stuff at Target, it's absolute foolishness. But until you start budgeting, you don't realize how much of that is going out the door. Now, the other thing that I talk about in the book comes down to the offense. What are you doing every day at work? My goal at that time in my life, when I was going to work, is to leave and say, I outworked every single person that was at that job. I may not be the most skilled, I may not be the smartest, there's certain things that I can't control, things like experience, but I can control my work ethic. And I made sure that there was not a server in that restaurant that could say that they worked harder than me. When all my tables were taken care of, I picked up the water glass and I went to everybody else's tables. When I noticed that a table needed more bread or needed more cheese fondue or had a plate, I just grabbed it on the way out and took it to the kitchen. I didn't ask myself what's in it for me. I didn't care. Helping the team win was the value system that I carried. Well, guess what? My boss ended up seeing that all the time. And who became the top virus that goes around? And if we don't call it out, you start to believe it without realizing you did. Just like when you don't budget your money, you don't realize where it's going. The popular sentiment right now, many people in this room have it. I've suffered from it at times. With success often comes this virus, is that the goal of life is to make as much money as you can while working as least as you have to. In fact, if we're being honest, that's why a lot of people are drawn to the real estate investing world. That's why a lot of people come to Bigger Pockets. I'm tired of having a job. I'm tired of waking up in the morning early. I'm tired of things I don't like. I want to live life on my terms. Real estate investing can get me there. And it's not that I'm saying don't invest in real estate. I'm obviously a big proponent of it, an advocate for it. But how many people have tried investing in real estate without having to work hard and seen success? The people that you see up here talking about what they're doing and the stuff they've learned, they didn't get into it for passive income that wasn't hard. They're getting their butt kicked every single day. Every day they're having to realize that they are not enough, that they need to be better than they were the day before. And just when you think you got it figured out, the market goes and throws a complete monkey wrench and you're all the way back to trying to figure it out again. If you guys want to be multifamily syndicators, if you want to have big portfolios, if you want to manage a lot of properties, if you want to run businesses that are profitable, you are going to have to get addicted to the process of falling in love with becoming great. It is not something that you can get into to avoid the hard work. It's just a lie. That's something you're going to be sold by influencers who want you to pay to take their course. It doesn't mean courses are bad, but if you're being told, take my course so that you don't have to work hard, you're just being lied to. Because the people who are making those courses, they're working really, really hard. They're putting out content nonstop. There is no way around this entire approach. And I feel this is a necessary message because with the last 10 years of incredible affluence that we've had for so long, we've picked up a lot of bad habits. Sometimes we just subconsciously are being pulled along and we don't even realize that what we're trying to do is avoid the hard work, avoid having to get out of our comfort zone, avoid having to get rejected, avoid anything that wouldn't be easy. And we've convinced ourselves that that's our right and we deserve that. And if we just keep going around and trying to find the right job, eventually we'll get the right fit. Has anyone here experienced that? Let's look at the dating market. Anybody in here that's single and willing to admit it? Okay, we got a couple people here, all right? How many of you have run into someone that you might be interested in dating, and that person's question to you was, what do you need and how do I become that? Do you ever find that? It's always the opposite. What you find is, here's what I am, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I want. Are you that? Oh, you're not? Let me move on to the next thing. It becomes like an addiction that never ends because we never find the person that's exactly who we want them to be. But those of you that are in successful relationships, didn't you get into a successful relationship and maintain it because you're always asking yourself the question, what do they need from me and how do I become that? How many of you have ever been to a gym and your goal was to go to the gym and spend an hour there without having to touch a weight? How many of you have left the gym and were like, yes, I didn't break a sweat, I didn't touch a weight, I avoided any form of work, I freaking crushed it, that's how you do it, brushed your shoulder off and got in your car. But do you realize that that's the attitude that many of us bring to work every day? How do I find a way to just olay any kind of work and make somebody else do it? How do I avoid any form of responsibility? How do I do the bare minimum without getting fired? Would anyone be shocked that you didn't get stronger if you went to the gym every day and tried to avoid the weights? How many of us are doing that at our own jobs? No, I know this is unpopular because it's much more popular to get up here and say employers are evil, rich people are evil, your boss is taking advantage of you, don't work for them, work for yourself, all of these things that make you feel strong and empowered. But the reality is you don't know how to do that boss's job. That's why you're working for them. And if you wanted to learn how to do that boss's job, I would think the best thing you could do is become the best employee that they had and say, now what else can I do? Do I have any business owners in here that will admit it? How many of you have so much talent in your company that you're like telling people, no, you cannot have a new opportunity. No, I will not give you more responsibility. I don't want to teach you anything. Is that the problem that we have as business owners? No, it's the opposite, right? Why can't I find anybody in this company that cares just a little bit about anything other than what they can put in their own pocket? Why am I having to hunt people down to get them to just show up to work when they were supposed to show up? How come every time I'm not looking, the first thing that they do is stop working? Now, of course, that's not everybody, so if you're offended by what I'm saying, you might be the exception, but I'm telling you, you're probably the exception. The majority of the coworkers in your world, that's how they are. That's how many of us have become. We resent the fact we have to work at all. Now, what I am positing to y'all is if you take the approach of I'm going to outwork everyone, I'm going to be my boss's best employee, I'm not going to take the attitude of when you pay me more, I will work more. I'm going to take the attitude of I will work harder than everyone, and then I will go back and say, what do I need to do to get paid more? You will make your way to the top. And you know what happens when you make your way to the top and the boss has no room for you? You find another job. And you don't have any guilt at all. Because as an employee, it is your job to outwork everybody and learn as much as you can every day. And it is your boss's job to create a bigger world where there will always be opportunity for the people that do that. And if you did your job and you got to the top and they did not do their job, you don't have to feel guilt. You are actually entitled to go get yourself another job with better pay and a better environment. And guess what happens when you go get that job? You go into it with the work ethic that's going to make you crush it. There's a reason that I started at Togo's and then I was able to go being a waiter and I was able to be successful there. It was that brought the same work ethic with me. I developed it playing basketball, and then I brought it into Togo's, and then I went to become a waiter, and then I graduated with $100,000, and then I became a cop, and then I started doing the same thing as a cop. I was working overtime every chance I could. Every sergeant I got, that's a supervisor in the police world, I would say, what does the perfect cop look like? What would make your job easier? What are your biggest pain points? What drives you nuts? And when they told me what it was, I just went out of my way to try to avoid doing that and help them when that stuff would happen. I was the first phone call for every single sergeant when somebody called in sick because they knew that I wouldn't give them a hard time. I'd just be like, yes, sir, I'll be there. This is what I need to get to work that shift. I'll be there if you guys can do that. Made more money than everyone did. Now, what do you think happened when the market crashed in 2010? Everybody else was like, oh, there's a great opportunity in real estate. I should start saving some money. All those guys that were going to Cancun and Cabo, was that just a $1,500 Mexico trip, or did that cost them buying houses for $150,000 that are now worth $500,000? Losing out on 4 of those houses is a legit $1 million that those people lost. That's how much those Cabo trips costed. That's how much going home from work every single day, especially when you're young and not staying to pick up closing shifts cost. That's how much spending all their money on alcohol and weed when they were 20 years old. It cost them millions of dollars over the course of their life. Now, did they see that? No. Because they were focused on what was right in front of them, and they had the attitude of, when you pay me more, I will work harder. And I just want to ask, does that work in a relationship? I'm not married, but I'm sure that if I am married someday and I say to my wife, I'll tell you what, I'll love you more when you love me more, it's probably not going to go over great. Especially because she's sitting there somewhere thinking the same thing about me, right? I'll do more when you do more. Have you guys noticed that this is the pattern of how life works? And when you come across the human being that says, I'm going to be the one to love first, doesn't that make you endeared to them? Doesn't it catch you thinking, I want to do something nice to somebody else? This is the philosophy that I think we need. And guys, it does apply to real estate investing. It applies a lot. When you actually get your opportunities in this space, if you want the contractor to take your job over somebody else's, you got to know how to speak the contractor's language. Whatever it is that you're getting to within the real estate world, the more that you know about how that person's job works, the easier you are to work with and the more that they're going to prioritize you over other people. So when we're talking about starting a portfolio, my advice would be stop looking for creative solutions. It doesn't mean if you've got one to ignore it, okay? But stop being obsessed with how do I find a way around the obstacle. Let the wealth you want to be the carrot that propels you to change who you are. That is what success is. The most successful people I know are always asking the question, how do I change to meet the requirements of what I need? How do I become what this opportunity needs to be successful? And that's why I have confidence. I was never good at speaking. You guys meet anybody that knew me when I was younger, they'll tell you I was the most socially awkward person they've ever met. I promise you. Most people don't believe me when I say it. Then they'll talk to someone like Kyle, my best friend, and they're like, oh my God, he really was that way. And there's awkward pictures to prove it. This just became the result of saying, what do I need to do to be good at my job? I'm up here to talk to you guys. Do you guys want to be bored by a bunch of numbers and a dry delivery and a bunch of stuff that makes me protect myself from anybody ever thinking that I said the wrong thing? Probably not. So you figure out a way to communicate that makes you easier to listen to. What I firmly believe is that every one of you has some opportunity. You've got investors you're beholden to, you've got clients you're beholden to, you've got a boss you're beholden to, you've got somebody. You control how much effort that you put into being your very best every day. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's practical. Because the boss that's out there who controls who get the promotion is looking to see who's my hardest worker. Does anybody in here ever in your life, have you said to somebody else, I'm in town, I've never been here before, where do I find the most mediocre tacos? Has that ever happened? What's the question that we always ask? Where's the best tacos? Why do we want the best? Tastes good? Be honest, why do we want the best? Yeah, we're selfish. Of course, right? Have any of you ever said, where's the taco shop that has the owner who wants to have an automated system where they don't have to work because I want to support their dream of sitting on the beach and drinking Mai Tais? Have you ever had that thought? You never have because it does not benefit you. That's why I'm saying this is a practical approach. Everybody, ourselves included, are looking for excellence. We want to know what is the best. How do I get the best? Well, all that I'm saying is if you want to grow your portfolio, if you want to make more money, if you want to have the weight of sustaining a 500-pound bench press of wealth, you have to become the best. Now, I would firmly expect that most people, when they hear this, would be like, F that and F him. I'm looking for the way around it. And I don't get offended at that. I promise you. I know what it's like. It is a tough pill to swallow when you have to realize that the problem is you. And that the only way that you're going to get more is if you become more. But what I'm saying is if you start that journey just like the first time you work out, it sucks and you hate it and you want to die and you're super sore the next day and you're miserable, it goes away. There is a process that you start to fall in love with working out. When you first change your diet, isn't it miserable? But if you stick with it for a period of time, it starts to become to where eating bad food actually makes you feel sick and you don't like it. Working hard, wealth building is the exact same way. You will fall in love with the process and you will find that wealth starts to find you guys. Now, the book I wrote, you can buy it at biggerpockets.com/pillars or it's on Amazon now. I would love it if you'd buy that book, but not just to read it. After you'd read it, I'd love it for you to give it to somebody who needs to hear this. There's going to be many people in your lives who are going to be asking the question, how did you get that real estate? How do you own those houses? I want to be just like you. And basically what they're looking for is a shortcut. Tell me everything you learned and all the mistakes you made and all the stuff you did so that I don't have to go do it. And do any of us love when somebody approaches us like that? No, so I wrote this book to be your get out of jail free card. Just give them that. Read this book and leave me alone. And do the stuff in the book, and then you can come back to me and we'll have a conversation about it. I know I'm out of time, but I was going to try to give you guys a couple questions. If you'd like, can we just get a couple questions before I get off the stage? I should have given you a couple more minutes. I just dropped that, I don't know when. It's going to be awkward for like 10 seconds till somebody raises their hand. Who's going to be the hero? Oh, there we go, sir.
What was the spark? And it sounds like you're playing basketball as a child. Was that the spark
That is it.
that started the whole flaming?
100%. I was in love with basketball. I wanted to be good at basketball. And I realized that I wasn't going to be good just by being I was more athletic than your average kid. I was not athletic as the really good ones. And so I had to learn, I had to work harder, I had to become smarter, and I was very frustrated because my natural athleticism was not able to propel me to playing like Division I college, which is what I wanted to do. There was a boundary on me that I could not overcome. What I found is in the world of entrepreneurialism, whether it was buying real estate or starting a business or working in someone else's business, my athleticism was my mindset. And no one could control that, right? Like I saw you nodding your head the whole time I was talking. You got the right mindset. You're not hearing about working hard and like, man, can you get this guy off stage and have someone tell me about how to predict cap rates? That's what I really want to know, right? In the world of hard work, we get to decide how we're going to think and what we're going to believe. And so once it clicked with me that I can control my own destiny, I kind of got addicted to it. Yes. That's a really good question. I used to try much harder than I do now. So I borrow heavily from the book Richest Man in Babylon. Anybody ever read that book? Incredible book. The first third of Pillars, there's a ton of stuff that I refer to from Richest Man in Babylon. And this is probably a good story to leave you guys with. There's a story about an ox and a donkey. You guys remember that? So the idea is there's an ox and its job is to plow the field, and it complains to its donkey friend all the time about how hard the work is. And so the donkey says, you know what? Tomorrow when the farmer comes to hitch you up to the plow, just lay on the ground and bellow like you're sick. He's not going to make you work. So the farmer comes next morning, sure thing. The ox lays on the ground, bellows. The farmer tries to get it up 4, 5, 6 times, gives up. Says, all right, I guess the ox isn't going to work. So what do you think he does? He goes to the donkey. He throws the plow on the donkey, and the donkey has to spend all day doing the work that the ox should have done. Now, did the ox get up and say, JK, I'm okay. I feel bad. Let me take the plow. No, it did not. It was happy to let the donkey do all the work, right? So the moral of the story is never help someone else if it's going to hurt you. Never co-sign on somebody else's debt just to help them out if it's going to hurt you and there's no reason why you should do it. Never take on somebody else's responsibilities to do the hard work for them that they don't want to do. Because what happens is you end up working twice as hard. They get the compensation for it, and they don't feel bad that you were the one that had to work. People have to go through that pain. I had to go through a lot of pain in that basketball realm to develop the mindset I have, where now I look at it like every challenge I get, I'm going to have to become a different, better version of David, so I'm okay with it. I didn't start off like that. So when you see the people that have the wrong mindset, I think that the loving thing to do is to tell them, yeah, you're thinking the wrong way. Here's a book to read that will tell you the right way, but let them sit in their pain until they get sick of it. That's a big problem, and I would say at a systemic level in our country, we've gotten away from that. People are struggling, and instead of letting them sit in their pain, we want to come along and say, that's not fair. You deserve fill in the blank. We create some kind of safety net or social program that says, here you go, you don't have to work to have it, it's a right that you get. And then everyone sees that, and then we all start working less. And that's how we've got ourselves into this problem where like Americans aren't really known for our hard work anymore. That was the case 50 years ago, was the case 80 years ago. We used to talk about the blue-collar, red-blooded American worker, and it's now you ask every one of them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say a TikTok influencer. It's really bad. In fact, a lot of people are in the real estate investing space specifically because someone told them that you can do this without having to work hard, and it's simply not true. It's not true at all. And there's an image that gets portrayed that way, and guys, if you're feeling shame because you're not being successful in your career as much as you thought you were, the people that you're looking up to are not as successful as you think they are. They're making way more money selling their courses and their content than they actually are from their real estate. The problem is not you if you're doing your best. The problem is that building wealth is effing hard. It is very, very hard. Just like having an incredible body and just like having an incredible relationship will be, there is no passive wealth. There is no passive fitness. There is no passive relationship. It's always going to be something that's hard. So my advice to you, if you just submit to that and you accept this reality, is to fall in love with the process of becoming great. If it's going to be hard work to do it, learn to like that hard work. Learn to love what it does to you, and you won't resent the work that you're going to have to put into it. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate all of your attention.